Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open the black box of the financial audit endgame. You always hear about auditors spending weeks or even months poring over a company's books. But what exactly do they produce when all that fieldwork is finally done? How is that information packaged up? And honestly, who actually gets to see it? Well, that is exactly what we're going to uncover today.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're looking at the two types of audit reports, mastering the 5 C's, navigating the audit opinion spectrum, the crucial exit meeting, and we'll wrap things up with the absolute rule of confidentiality. Let's dive right in. All right, Section 1, two types of audit reports, or as I like to call it, the tale of two deliverables. So an audit doesn't just spit out one single document at the end. We're actually dealing with two completely distinct reports. First up is the audit opinion. This one is entirely public. It's usually just a short 2 to 3 page document, and it's essentially a pass-fail grade attached to the financial statements, declaring if they are true and fair. Notice it contains absolutely zero recommendations. But behind closed doors, there is the management letter. Now, this is a private document, often 20 pages or more, and it's handed straight to senior management. It highlights internal control weaknesses and is just packed with actionable advice for the company.
This stark contrast really highlights how these two reports serve completely different audiences and objectives. The audit opinion, that's for the public, the shareholders, the investors. It just tells them if the accounting framework was followed. The management letter, on the other hand, is an internal tool. This is where the auditor adds real, tangible value, opening up a constructive dialogue with management to actually improve their daily operations and internal systems.
Moving on to Section 2, mastering the 5 C's and structuring that management letter.
So how exactly do auditors write that lengthy, private management letter so that it's actually useful to executives? Well, they use a highly logical progression called the 5 C's. Honestly, this is a fantastic framework you could even use in your own problem-solving at work to build a compelling case. First, we have the criterion. Basically, what is the rule or standard that should be in place? Second is the condition. What did the auditor actually observe happening in reality? Third is the cause. Why does this gap between the rule and reality exist in the first place? Fourth is the consequence. What is the risk to the company if this isn't fixed? And finally, the corrective action. What exactly does the auditor recommend management do to solve it?
Now, the trickiest of these 5 C's to pin down is definitely the cause. Think about it like this. Imagine you spot water stains on your wallpaper. That's your condition. If your corrective action is just to scrub the spots off, you haven't really solved anything, have you? The root cause is actually a broken pipe hidden behind the wall. If you don't fix that broken pipe, the wet floor and the ruined wallpaper are inevitably coming back. Auditors basically have to hunt for that broken pipe hidden inside a company's accounting system. And this quote really hits the nail on the head. By using techniques like the 5 whys, asking why over and over until the true underlying problem is exposed, auditors ensure their recommendations actually strengthen the organization's future. It's about fundamentally improving governance, not just slapping a Band-Aid on a clerical error. Okay, Section 3, the audit opinion spectrum. We're going from clean all the way down to a disclaimer.
Jumping back over to the public-facing side of the audit, what happens when that public grade isn't a simple pass? Well, before we look at the spectrum of opinions, we absolutely must understand this critical piece of jargon: pervasive. Pervasive is literally the hinge word that dictates just how bad a modified audit opinion is going to be. Look, if an error is confined to just one small account, it's not pervasive. But if an error bleeds into multiple accounts, represents a massive chunk of the finances, or fundamentally ruins a user's ability to understand the company's health, that is pervasive.
So here are the 4 potential corporate grades, moving from an unmodified clean slate at the top down to the absolute worst-case scenarios. An unmodified opinion is exactly what every company wants. Then you have a qualified opinion, which means things are mostly fine except for one specific isolated issue. But then it gets dark. An adverse opinion means the errors are so massive and pervasive that the entire financial statement is fundamentally misleading. And finally, a disclaimer opinion means the auditor couldn't even get the evidence they needed, so they are just throwing their hands up and refusing to give an opinion at all. This matrix is pretty much the ultimate grading rubric for corporate finance. As you can see, an auditor's judgment about that word we defined earlier, pervasiveness, is exactly what pushes a simple qualification right over the edge into the devastating territory of an adverse or disclaimer opinion. If a misstatement is material but isolated, you get a qualified opinion. But the second that misstatement becomes pervasive, boom, it's an adverse opinion.
And the exact same logic applies when audit evidence is missing. Which brings us to Section 4, the crucial exit meeting. This is truly the climax of the audit.
All right, so we've got our draft reports and we know our severity grades. But before a single word is published to the world or finalized for the board, this pivotal moment has to happen. Both sides sit across the table from each other in a formal discussion to clarify any last-minute misunderstandings and agree on the facts. The auditor presents their draft findings, and management gets a chance to explain themselves, or maybe provide that one missing document. It is absolutely crucial because the outcome of this meeting is documented in writing. This ensures the auditee cannot suddenly turn around and refute the issues after the report is issued. It firmly locks the narrative in place.
And finally, Section 5, the rule of confidentiality. The sacred oath of the auditor, if you will.
Think about it. Auditors have total, unrestricted access to a company's absolute most sensitive inner workings. So maintaining strict physical and digital security over these files isn't just some polite suggestion. It is a fundamental professional requirement. This means practically never leaving files out on a desk at the client's office. It means using highly encrypted memory sticks, aggressive firewalls, and complex passwords. Literally, if an auditor loses a flash drive, it could compromise an entire global corporation. But while confidentiality is the golden rule, auditing standards, specifically ISA 200, do outline some rare, highly specific exceptions. An auditor isn't forced to keep a secret if keeping that secret breaks the law. If they're summoned by a court, if the client actually authorizes it, or if there is a massive public interest issue, like identifying severe money laundering or fraud, the auditor actually has a professional and legal right, and sometimes a duty, to speak up to the authorities.
So I want to leave you with this thought. An audit is built entirely on trust, right? But if the underlying data isn't secure and confidential, what is that assurance really worth? The entire purpose of the audit opinion and the management letter is to build trust in our financial systems. But the value of an auditor's true and fair view is only as strong as the integrity and secrecy of the process behind it. If the data isn't secure, the entire illusion of assurance just crumbles. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope you now have a much clearer view into the black box of audit reporting.